By the way, congratulations. Brandon Aiyuk's got a big roster bonus due later on today. What is it, 20-something million he's going to be getting?
Yeah, almost 23 million.
Yeah. And so I'm not sure. John Lynch said yesterday at the owners' meetings that no regrets with the deal. They loved him when they drafted him. They love him even more now. He's coming off the ACL injury, and so they're looking forward to having him on the roster here in 2025. But
if we could trade him, we will.
I mean,
all that being said, but if we can move you, Brandon, we would.
Well, the toughest part, too, is even if they tried to move him, he's got the $23 million bonus that is guaranteed today, but I believe his 2026 option bonus also becomes fully guaranteed. So if they do, and he's obviously coming off a torn ACL, so even if they were trying to trade him at this point, he's not healthy. They'd have to pass a physical, or the team would have to sign on to that, which they probably wouldn't. And it feels like, from all reports, the San Francisco 49ers front office brass was frustrated with a lot of the money they've paid out and not really seeing the dividends from that. Well, this would be just that. You've got a guy who you're paying and essentially trading away, and who knows how they work out that trade compensation, who's paying for what, but you'd hope that you get a number of considerable draft picks in return for him, but that just hasn't been the case. For veteran wide receivers, we have not seen a bounty of picks in return for those guys.
I don't look, man. I know we got a draft and we've got and the Niners have a lot of picks. I'm sorry, I just don't get how they're favored to win the West. I just don't get it.
It doesn't make sense, really.
I don't understand. It doesn't make sense at all.
Where would you guys rank Brock Purdy of the quarterbacks in the NFC West? You got Kyler Murray, you got Matt Stafford, and you have now Sam Darnold. Where would you rank?
I mean, I'd put him ahead of Sam Darnold.
Yeah, he'd be third.
See, I wouldn't even put him ahead of Sam Darnold after Sam Darnold's year last year.
Really?
After his year last year, I would say if I had to choose between the two off of performances last year, I'm going with Sam Darnold. That's the hot hand. Now, that could prove to be incorrect, but if I'm going off of who I believe is the hot hand, I'm going off of Sam Darnold. Now, Kyler Murray, that one could be up for debate just maybe because of him always seemingly going out with maybe an injury, or, they're a better team when Kyler Murray is on the field, but when he's not healthy or he's not on the field, that they're not as good a team. I may debate him and Kyler Murray, but Matthew Stafford is the undisputed champ of best quarterback in the NFC West. Point is, though, I would assume that Brock Purdy is not in. Is he in the discussion for second best? And maybe you can make the argument.
Yeah, with Kyler,
you're gonna find out. You're gonna find out this year. You're gonna find out this year. Like Q said, and I'm a reference because I love referencing Q. He said you're gonna find out what type of contract.
Not me?
Well, because he gives more information than you do.
He reads off my notes.
You're probably right. But since he delivers it, I give him credit for it.
Why would either of you two think I read off of either of your notes?
Damn!
Well, first of all, we don't think the same. That's so. I would never accuse you of thinking like me. We think very different.
That's not true.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not that different.
Well, I'm going to say that to keep people off balance. Anyway, here's the point. This San Francisco team, Brock Purdy had the opportunity to show that he could win without the key pieces that he has had during the successful run that he had. Would we say, now here's the question, would we say that was a successful campaign that he was able to have without Aiyuk and without Christian McCaffrey and at times without Trent Williams? Would we say he was able to have the type of year that would justify him being the quarterback that should get paid and looked at as the franchise guy for the San Francisco 49ers?
I would say last year for Brock Purdy was a tale of two seasons. And I think the first 7 weeks, 7 games, he played really well up until the game versus Kansas City. I thought that was the first game where he started to really kind of tailspin. He recovered a little bit after that, I think. But then, he missed a couple of games. He was inactive when they went to Green Bay and they got absolutely blown out, which gave you a little bit of a sense of kind of where the team was. And look, I don't know his health after that. I don't know, again, with some of the missing pieces you're talking about too, how that impacted things. But he really never looked the same to me starting in week 7, moving on down after they had played Kansas City. So that to me was kind of how I'd view his season last season. I mean, look, he played phenomenal the year before. You can't take that away from him and what he was able to do in his second year. And I think that the tough thing, I think, for the 49ers in this case is, remember, he started those 5 games his rookie season, and he played great and stepped up, but it's a really small sample size, and he goes into the playoffs, and you're kind of watching him thinking, he's a rookie. Is it too much? Is it too big for him? Does he have all the tools and ability to be able to, rise the level of like everyone out around him? And I think he's a great player within Kyle Shanahan's system. And the toughest thing is when you go back to that, the season he had just a year ago, he gets injured. So, we don't know what in the NFC Championship game. I mean, look, they got blown out, but we don't really know how that thing would have turned out had he been healthy. I think they would have at least been more competitive, right? Since that time, it's like, all right, like it hasn't really looked quite the same. Or excuse me, I'm thinking it was rookie year. But like the last time, 2 years ago when they went to the playoffs, I thought he played pretty well. I mean, they didn't really hang their hat on him having to win it, but they didn't have to either. And then in his rookie year, it's like, again, we don't know how the NFC Championship game, would have went, but I thought he played pretty well, all things considered.
If I'm saying this year, I'm saying no. He did not
and that's
definitively prove that he's that guy.
Yeah, with body of work.
That's fair.
Body of work, though.
And I think that's what Brady is establishing, that he has I would say he has a legitimate body of work, 100%.
This year in a vacuum, no.
This year,
yeah.
I can't say yes.
Here's 2 things that I think stand in the way of what probably the 49ers and John Lynch and everyone else is thinking, but no one wants to say it. If you put him right now and you made him, whether it was, put him on the trade block and say, we want to trade for him, we see what someone gives up for him. And this is even a down year in the draft, and we've obviously got Rodgers still out there. Maybe you could trade for Cousins. I don't know what the trade market would be for him. And
I would take him over, and this sounds horrible, I would take him over any of the first-round draft quarterbacks, first-round quarterbacks. Right now.
I was going to ask.
Well, I was going to say the second thing to all that is like his draft grade. I mean, he was Mr. Irrelevant.
He was Mr. Irrelevant, right.
It's not going to be higher than what Cam Ward's draft grade is, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. So if you're just taking a baseline comparison of what the prospects look like coming into the league, and granted, that kind of goes out the window once a guy gets into the league and starts playing. But if you're the 49ers and you're Kyle Shanahan, you've had success with a lot of guys in your system. You're now looking at it saying, like, well, couldn't we do this with someone else?
I mean, they got rid of Trey Lance, but I would also say, and the reason why I said I would take Brock Purdy over one of the quarterbacks in this year's draft is because I know I can win with Brock Purdy. Whether we're going to look at it from the standpoint of what Kyle Shanahan has been able to do offensively, of course, he's been a genius. He's been able to do it with multiple quarterbacks. My whole thing is that if you've proven to me that you can have success in this league, sure, you can look at the offensive scheme as being something that aided him or saying that he's managing the game. So he's not really putting himself in a position, or they're not putting him in a position where he could be taken advantage of and not have success. Bottom line is he has a body of work, as we mentioned. So there is a value to him. But I just wonder how much is that value to the 49ers right now currently with the type of roster that they have. And back to the original point, there's no way with the question marks that would be around Brock Purdy and what he's able to do with the supporting cast that he has today. And that the rest of this team and how they've been, letting certain guys get away. What's the health of the other main guys that you have? How do you make them a preseason favorite over the Rams? I don't see how the way the Rams finished out. They were the team that almost knocked off Philly. How do you put the 49ers ahead of the Rams in the NFC West? I don't understand where the money is going and what it's chasing based off of what information. I'm confused by that.
I mean, do they have to give him the long-term deal right now? Like, do they have?
They don't have to, but then, he might be unhappy and maybe he misses time, maybe he doesn't. I mean, they could give him a short-term deal or offer him that, but he might say, like, I don't want to do that. And usually if you're taking a short-term deal, you'd think that you'd increase the amount that you get paid up front, because if you're taking a shorter-term deal, you want the financial security right now, because you're not giving me the long-term financial security in a longer-term deal with probably more guarantees built into that.
I wonder if they're sold on him being the guy, because they're still going back and forth, they're negotiating all that. I wonder if they're looking at it like, hey man, based on to LaVar's point, this past year, obviously we know we're trying to retool and add some new pieces. We got a bunch of draft picks. We'd like to see a little bit more. And if he goes and has a great year this next year and it's going to cost you more in the long run, that's a good problem to have, because at least it
was a safe move. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
I don't know. I just wonder, are they sold on the quarterback room, or is there the potential that maybe they have?
They have admitted, John Lynch has since admitted, this is a rebuild. Like, they're rebuilding right now. I don't think you can be sold on Brock Purdy based off of last season, and you can rest assured with his body of work that there's the possibilities that he could be the quarterback of your future, but his body of work is connected to a very, very strong supporting cast that isn't his supporting cast today. So you can't be all the way sold on Brock Purdy based upon what his draft grade was and how he was used and managed within the offensive scheme that Kyle Shanahan has, with the personnel that he was able to do it with. You can't possibly say, I can rest assured that Brock Purdy is the franchise guy for our team in a rebuild mode. Can't do it.
I think a couple of things quickly. When you're an offensive mind like Kyle Shanahan, and you've got the prowess that you do, or you've had success in a bunch of different places with a bunch of different types of quarterbacks. You mentioned Trey Lance. He's probably the only one that hasn't actually had success in that system that's played. So he might be looking at it as saying, depending on if Brock Purdy and his agency is playing hardball, this might be something that they push off till after the draft if you're the team. Because you've got the 11th overall pick, you have the 43rd overall pick, the 75th overall pick, and the 100th overall pick. In those 4 picks, there might be a quarterback that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch love. And there might be a guy they've got a better, higher, prospect grade on, and they can, and to your points, they can let this thing play out by not agreeing to the long-term deal, seeing what they have in one of these young guys. I mean, Brock Purdy, his rookie year, was that young guy, right? He came in for the injured Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, admittedly, when he said, like, hey, Garoppolo's the starter, he's like, I knew I was going to have a chance. And that most likely had to do more with his anticipation of him getting injured, because that's plagued Jimmy Garoppolo through the course of his career. But that was the mentality. And I'm sure there's some thought now that maybe they could go draft a guy that could easily compete or have, better tools and intangibles, or at least those equivalent to Brock Purdy, with some of the draft capital that they have. And that's how you could kind of play hardball with it. And so if you're the agent and the player, you may want to think about trying to get that deal done, whatever their best offer is, before the draft starts. Otherwise, we always see surprises in the first round and even just throughout the draft with teams taking quarterbacks. We don't think they need it. I mean, remember, I believe was it Mason Rudolph who was taking the second round?
Third, I think.
Third round? Yeah. I mean, I just remember Ben Roethlisberger's reaction to that.
Yeah.
He was completely shocked.
We don't.
Because it was like, we don't need this right now. Yeah. But that's how the organization was thinking. I mean, I'm sure Steelers fans, people on the outside, were going, we don't need this. Like, why are we not getting a receiver? Why are we getting something else?
We didn't need it.
Well, and we did. That's the reality, is the organization's going to see it and think differently than everyone else. And so maybe San Francisco is that surprise team that takes a quarterback in this year's draft, and one that they feel like is undervalued. Very similar to Brock Purdy, who, when they took him, they thought he was undervalued.